Good afternoon, folks. In the spirit of wanting to run the trains on time, I thought it's 12 o'clock and I thought I would get us started. Thank you first for joining us today for this lunch and learn session about a very, very exciting project, the Purple Line. My name is Carlo Colella. I'm the Vice President of Administration and Finance here at the university. And I'm really excited about this project that has been in the works for very many years. I think for quite a long time it was unclear whether this project would ever come to fruition, and through a lot of hard work within the university, outside the university, I'm really happy to say that we're underway. And I want to give particular recognition to one of the key persons advocating for this project for many years, Ralph Bennett from the School of Architecture. Thank you for joining us, Ralph. Thank you for all the work that you've done over the years. Literally, without Ralph and others like Ralph, this project wouldn't be coming to us. So, first off, I want to make sure that anybody is free at any time to ask a question, throw out a comment. We'll have time at the end for some Q&A, but I want this very much to be more of a dialogue than a presentation. I'm going to go through some basic information and some things I anticipate you'll be interested in. I'll talk about that, but also we have time for Q&A. And I don't want to assume for a minute that people have even a basic understanding of what the Purple Line is. So let me just start by describing it a little bit. It's light rail. This is a 16-mile, mostly on grade light rail train that will go from New Carrollton through College Park, through Silver Spring, onto Bethesda. Light rail technology over the years continues to evolve, and if you've been to cities elsewhere in the States, you might know that they are much quieter than, for example, the heavy rail system that you would see in Washington Metro. They're powered by overhead cables, and our light rail system will be operated through an agreement with the Maryland Transportation Administration. So it's not operated by Metro, the Washington, D.C. metro area, but it will connect at several locations, and I'll talk about those in just a second. But before doing that, to give you a sense of what light rail looks like, I'm going to play a little video here of light rail in Portland, Maine. Portland has been one of the innovators in smart growth and sustainability and enhanced public transportation. This train, so you can see sort of the character of the train. It's a little bit compared to a rail car. It's shorter. It's not as long. This happens to be a two-car train in Portland. And you can see it's going through an urban grid quite comfortably with other modes of transportation, pedestrians, cars, and the rest. The light rail here at Maryland is going to be a single car articulated, 138 feet in length. But I thought it would be good to just show you a little image of one of the trains. Over the 16 miles that I described, there are a total of 21 stations from one end to the other. And 5 of those stations will be on or adjacent university land. The Purple Line itself will connect 4 branches of metro system. So in New Carrollton, it connects to the Orange Line. In College Park, it connects to the Green Line. In Silver Spring, it connects on the eastern spur of the Red Line, and in Bethesda, the western spur of the Red Line. So great connectivity to Washington's metro system. In addition to that, the MARC train, so that's a commuter train that runs in Maryland. It will connect at New Carrollton to a MARC line there. There's a College Park MARC line as well. And then finally, Amtrak, which is at New Carrollton. So if you want to get on Amtrak to go to Philadelphia or New York or Boston, literally you can hop on a train here and make your way to New Carrollton and jump on Amtrak. Among those 5 stations that are on or adjacent to campus, all university faculty, staff, and students will be able to ride that 5 station zone for free. So that was one of the things we were able to negotiate with MTA, and we're expecting that service will start in 2022. It's a multi-year construction project. The last year of that construction includes a lot of testing and operations, but we're hopeful that by 2022 we will be in service. This image here just depicts, this is, for those of you who are familiar with the Metro map, you can see here the lines that I just mentioned previously and all the station names. A little bit too small to see, but we'll have great connectivity across the region. I mentioned earlier that the Purple Line has been underway for a very long time, and I only started this milestone in 2002. I think Ralph can probably go back even earlier than that. But one of the questions we get is, how was the alignment chosen? And there were a series of studies over a multitude of years before arriving at the recommended alignment that was in fact adopted by the university and the university's Board of Regents in 2012. And then there was a multi-year process for MTA to contract with what's called a concessionaire. So it's an entity that will complete the design, build, operate, and maintain the Purple Line for a 35-year period of time. Construction actually broke ground formally last fall in Prince George's County, and as I mentioned earlier, the service is scheduled to begin in 2022. So the alignment, I remember in working with the MTA folks and having a lot of discussions about where best to have the alignment, and the message that I remember is you want to put the public transportation where the people are. And I think this image here depicts pretty accurately where a lot of our people are. So I'm going to move from left to right. So you see here is the Purple Line depicted at the very left edge of this image, which is the western side, is Adelphi Road and University Boulevard, near the Marriott Inn and Conference Center. And you can see a station in light blue that's indicated there. So that's the first of the 5 stations I mentioned. So the train alignment comes in on Campus Drive and then turns left at intersection that has a traffic signal right now. It's called Presidential Drive, and makes its way up towards Lot 1 and University House. It then turns right in front of the Cole Fieldhouse and Student Union, and you can see another light blue marker there that indicates the station there closest to Cole Fieldhouse and the Student Union. It continues again on the surface past the St. John Center, past Hornbeck Library, and goes through the intersection where the M Circle is now, and we'll talk about that in some more detail a little bit later, and then makes its way towards Baltimore Avenue. It stays to the north side of the Armory, to the south side of Turner Hall, and to the north side of the Rossborough End. And it comes through Baltimore Avenue, and there's a station immediately on the east side of Baltimore Avenue, adjacent to Ritchie Coliseum. Beyond this map, then, that line continues on to what used to be called Paint Branch Parkway. It has now been renamed Campus Drive. And then we'll continue on the roadway of Campus Drive to go underneath the railroad tracks, make a right turn, get to College Park Metro, where the 4th station is that I mentioned, and then continuing on east towards the edge of the Discovery District, what we used to call the Research Park, with one final station before you get to Kenilworth Avenue. So I mentioned earlier, among those 5... Oh, yes, go ahead.
I just ask a question.
Sure.
How will it cross the arteries, University Boulevard and US 1? Are there going to be bridges, or will they be putting down gates for the traffic?
No, there will be, great question. Yeah, please, go. Yeah, go ahead. If you would, let me repeat the question now, and if someone has a question, just give Courtney a moment to get to you with the microphone so everybody can hear. So the question was, how will the trains cross major roadways like University Boulevard and Baltimore Avenue. You notice I say Baltimore Avenue, not Route 1. For the entirety of the 16 miles from east to west, almost all of it is at grade. There's a little section in Bethesda that goes underground, but the rest of it is at grade. And the traffic signalization will be used to control what moves through the intersection. So at those two intersections, there's a signalization process that will stop cars, let the train that's there move through for 30 seconds or whatever it is, and then the signals will change and the cars go through. So it's all at grade crossing. Great question, thank you. So I mentioned, one of the benefits that we're going to have is to be able to ride free, hop on, hop off. So for students who have internships in the Discovery District, or faculty who maybe have a business activity in the research park, or if you have visitors coming here right now, folks making their way from the College Park Metro to the middle campus either ride the 104 shuttle or have to make their way here, and be able to hop on and hop off is going to be really exciting. Obviously, with the Purple Line coming through and this great connectivity, we think a lot more of our community is going to be able to get to campus and to get off campus using public transportation rather than single occupancy vehicles. So we think that's going to reduce the amount of cars that we need on campus and help us, as we're working on many fronts, to create a great college town. And having this connectivity, being able to hop on and hop off, get downtown, get to the airports and all the rest, I think is going to be pretty exciting. A project of this size, and I don't think I mentioned it earlier, the construction cost of the entire project is estimated at $2.2 billion, if I'm remembering that correctly. And over the 35 years, including in operations and maintenance, I want to say it's $5.6 billion. I'm looking at Ed's Way, something in that range.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money, and all the money is secured now. So the federal funds, the state funds, the county funds are all secured. So we're well underway. A project of that size obviously is going to have impact while we're constructing it, while it's being constructed, I should say, on campus. And we've put together a couple of groups. One that we call the Purple Line Work Group. A lot of the day-to-day folks in public safety, in facilities, in transportation, in communication, that will have work with the Purple Line Consortium to manage activity through campus, and then a senior group that will help provide sort of strategic decision input and resources and support to the work group. So we're trying to make sure there's good representation. We want to have a number of sessions like this one, and I'll talk more a little bit later about where you can get information, sign up for alerts and those sort of things. But will be the construction activity on campus. I mentioned we started, I should say the Purple Line construction started last fall, but really its visibility onto campus hasn't happened yet, but will be happening very soon, which is why we're here today. In the first year, I say the first year for us, the activities that you'll see on campus it starts with utility relocation. The sequence for the work generally follows this pattern. You identify areas where you have to demolish certain structures or remove certain obstacles, and then you put in utilities, or you relocate utilities out of the way. That's followed by putting in sort of the roadway and the rail. That's followed by power and communications, and then there's a lot of testing that goes on afterwards. So soon we'll be seeing some utility relocation work along Campus Drive and Rossborough Lane. So Rossborough Lane is the one that is close to Ritchie Coliseum. So we'll start seeing that activity later this summer. And one of the most important things you'll see soon is the construction of a new M. You saw in the alignment previously that the light rail goes through the intersection of Regents Drive and Campus Drive where the M is today. And as part of the Purple Line project, we're building a new M literally 50 yards away in the landscape itself. So a lot of people, and we have some more information about that, and I'll get into in a little bit of in the next couple of slides. But we'll be constructing a new M before the old M is taken out of service. Then in the years ahead, we'll be continuing with utility relocations and the track and road work that I mentioned earlier. In the future, not sooner than next January, but perhaps the one after that, one of the significant impacts ahead of us is the work when the light rail is going to go under the bridge that goes to the College Park Metro. So I mentioned earlier the train sits on a roadway, but because the height of the train and the power above it is taller than most vehicles, that roadway has to be lowered by about 6 feet. And when that happens, that road is going to be out of service for some period of time, some number of months. We're working closely with the Purple Line folks and the others in the county, emergency services and the rest to provide some feedback as to when that will be least impactful. Did you have a question on that?
Yeah, that area underneath the bridge, bad rainstorm always floods. You put
Right.
it 6 feet lower.
Right.
What happens then?
So that's a great observation and question. And the reason that it floods now is the dewatering system and the pumping system there is inadequate. So as part of lowering the roadway, that pumping station gets reconstructed, and that's actually one of the significant activities that has to happen before any of the excavation work can continue. So, a significant increase in the pumping, a new pumping station, bigger capacity, and that has to be in place before any work gets done.
And will that construction then also impact that road and the closure thereof?
The pumping station, I think will be not in the roadway itself. It's actually, if I remember correctly, just a little bit north of the roadway. But when the work on the road occurs, that period of time, that road will be closed. Initially, working with the Purple Line folks, it was thought that perhaps that could be done over a summer because the impact to the university and the community is less in the summer. But it's so extensive, it's going to probably take more than one summer. And the thinking is that rather than try and do it over 2 or 3 summers, we just take some additional time connected to a summer and get the work done and then put it back in service. So our latest feedback, and other people have input into this, is the spring semester and the summer is a better window of time than the summer and the fall. So that's the feedback we're giving. I think it's pretty unanimous talking to folks on campus that spring semester is a less impactful time. And whether that closure happens next spring and summer or the one after that remains to be determined.
That's what I was going to say. Is this speaking then of 2019 or 2020?
No sooner than 2019, and I think
Right,
it's, yeah. So one of the things that's happening with the Purple Line, like many construction projects, schedules only move in one direction and they move out. The sequence of activities stays about the same, but right now we don't know whether it'll be 2019 spring and summer or more likely 2020 spring and summer. But as we get closer to that, we'll be communicating that. One of the things I should mention particularly for passenger vehicles, there's a bridge that has been constructed between Riverdale Park Station, that's where the Whole Foods is, if you're familiar with that area, over to what we used to call the Research Park. That bridge is about to open in a few weeks' time. So before Campus Drive under the railway is closed, that bridge will be open. So for passenger vehicles in particular, because it goes through a bit more of a residential neighborhood, there will be a new way to get across the tracks. Beyond that, it's either 410 or University Boulevard. More on that to come as we go ahead. Did I answer your question okay? Thanks. So I put this up just to, this is a very complicated illustration, but just an example of the kind of detail that those at the work group and the Purple Line transit constructors go through on a regular basis. There's a series of meetings every couple of weeks, and we get constant updates. What this depicts here is, in color codes, some of the activities I mentioned earlier. So the purple type of color, or lavender, I'm not very good with colors, is the utility relocation. And then you can see some of the storm work, the relocation of the M that's going to start later this summer, and some erosion and sediment control. So when this period of time that's depicted here is sort of the fall semester. So in the fall semester, Campus Drive between Regents Drive and Cole Fieldhouse will return to the condition it was in for a couple of years when we were building the Edward St. John Center. I think a lot of folks here who are on campus would remember that Campus Drive was one-way westbound throughout that construction period. In fact, we had expected that the Purple Line, that would never come back into service as two-way, because the Purple Line was scheduled to start kind of at the end of the St. John project, but the Purple Line got a little bit delayed, so we're back to two-way traffic right now, but we'll go to one-way traffic starting in the fall semester this year, more or less. And then I should mention that the final condition for the roadway there will be one-way traffic for passenger vehicles between Regents Drive and what I'll call Lot 1. There are actually 3 lanes. The outer lanes are for light rail, other public transportation, service, and emergency vehicles, and the center lane will be westbound most of the time. During special events, if we need to flip the direction of that, our public safety folks will manage that. But by and large, it'll be one-way for passenger vehicles between Regents and Lot 1. So this is the kind of map and discussion that goes on a regular basis, and that is what informs us to communicate to the campus activities that are ahead of us. So we think we'll have a pretty good sense, 3, 6, I can't tell you as accurately what's going to happen in 2 years, but 3 to 6 months from now, we have a pretty good insight as to what we expect to happen, and we're going to try our best to communicate that. Okay. Try once more. I was warned that there's a bit of a lag here. Okay, once more. All right, we talked a little bit about the M. I should have mentioned, I've been on campus for about 30 years. And most of that time, I've been involved with facilities, construction activity, and all the rest. And when it was first proposed that the light rail was going to require the relocation of the M, I thought, oh my God, that's going to be terrible. I can't believe we're going to do that. How can this possibly happen? It's such an iconic image of the campus. So a bunch of studies were done to look at how to deal with this. And as time went on, what became pretty apparent to those of us who've studied it a lot is the current M is really something that you can't easily enjoy as a pedestrian. My office sits pretty close by, and every December, and especially every May, I watch as students in cap and gown are standing in front of the M, and their friends and their family are backing up into traffic trying to take pictures. And not to mention, if you're biking through campus or walking, there's just a myriad of pathways and turnoffs and the rest. So the new M is going to be located just a few yards away, and we'll show you a little video about how that's going to appear, and becomes part of the landscape that people can enjoy all the time. So you no longer will have to step into traffic to enjoy the M, and that intersection will become a more normal intersection, actually with a traffic signal. So we think that's going to do a lot to improve safety for pedestrians, for bicycles, and for motorists as well. The other thing and I'm going to turn to this little video here for a second, most of us have an image of the M that's actually based on aerial photography of the M. And when we were working with MTA, we wanted to sort of say, what's the person's experience day in, day out when they drive or walk this way? What do you actually see about the M, and what's it going to look like in the future? So this little video, and I'm going to try and turn up the volume a little bit. If you're driving on Baltimore Avenue, taking a left, going up Campus Drive through North Gate, you can see it takes a little while before you even know where the M is, even if you know it's coming up. So you can just barely make out the M right now, and superimposed onto that is the relocated M in the lawn. So that's the Mitchell Building to the left. Simon's Hall is just ahead. And again, you can see the M moving into the lawn, and the intersection is clear. So the M relocated the light rail to the south and Campus Drive to the north. So I mentioned a little bit earlier the impacts that we expect to see soon, and single lane, starting early fall, single lane westbound. Over winter break or maybe over summer break, to concentrate and try and get as much work done when people aren't here, we can envision having the road closed in both directions for a limited period of times. But that will be, as I said, when activity on campus is really light. And then I mentioned earlier the permanent change in traffic pattern that, Campus Drive between Regents and Lot 1, or Coldfield House rather, actually Lot 1 to be more accurate, will be one way. And then we can change flow for special events as needed. So what I would encourage everybody to do, and just ready to turn it over for just general Q&A, is to sign up with Purple Line for Get on the Listserv, and messages that come out directly from the Purple Line folks. You can get that, and you identify what areas of the Purple Line work you're interested in receiving. So if you're interested only in Prince George's County in this location, you check a couple of boxes. If you're interested in other parts, you check other boxes as well. But you'll get information that gets pushed out periodically. And then on campus, we've set up a Purple Line website that you can find at this URL. We'll be sending out periodic notices when things are happening, as well as posting to social media. There's an email address if you want to just send general questions in, and I encourage people to do that. In addition to getting an answer, the question you're asking often a lot of other people are wondering about, so we'll add those questions, some of those questions and answers into our Q&A, which we have and we will keep refreshing. And then we want to repeat sessions like this through the fall to keep people informed. And with that, let me turn it over. Courtney, by the way, Courtney, the senior project manager who joined us recently, is going to be like our primary liaison with the Purple Line folks, and she's coming around with the microphone, so you can.
When you were talking about your work groups, you listed a bunch of different folks,
Right.
but I didn't hear you mention anybody with like disability support systems, or have you kept the handicapped people on campus in mind when planning this purple line?
Yeah, very much so. So all of the work that has to happen, there's sort of a maintenance of traffic as well as pedestrian detour plan that has to be reviewed, and we'll make sure that as people are detoured away from construction activity, those pathways are safe and accessible. And parts of the campus are, some of the terrain of the campus makes it kind of challenging, but like other construction projects, we want to make sure that we do what we can, but also I want to make sure that people know that if there's something that isn't working, there's a quick way to raise concern and get it addressed. We work hard to try and anticipate all that. Sometimes conditions on the ground are a little bit different, and if you see something or somebody else does, reach out and we'll address it very quickly. Courtney over here.
So as a student, I know a lot of people that I've talked to were talking about safety concerns.
Right.
I know that there's nightly security on campus with the gates coming down. How will that be affected, as well as students are getting hit by cars? How are you going to prevent students from running in and getting hit by a train in front of STAMP?
Both really good questions. So on the access through, so there are, on the west side of the campus, there are gates that would be, after whatever hours we determine. I think currently for campus it's at 10 p.m. at night that those gates are closed, and if there's service beyond that, there'll be a transponder on the rail car itself, and the gate will open and it'll close again. I should have mentioned earlier regarding safety, which of course is the biggest concern for all of this. We have, as part of our agreement with MTA, worked out that the trains will be the top speed on campus will be 15 miles per hour. So that was arrived at in addition to safety. There's an electromagnetic field that's generated by a mass of steel moving, and the faster it moves, the more electromagnetic interference it emits. So by keeping the train speeds down to 15 miles an hour or less, it's both safer for pedestrians as well as reducing that impact for electromagnetic interference. I think a way to think of it is sort of like today, pedestrians and people who operate vehicles, whether it's a personal vehicle, a shuttle bus, a truck, you acclimate to the environment that you're in terms of understanding that students are not, they're stepping, into crosswalks, and they're going to have the right of way. When the MTA operators are on campus, it's a different pedestrian environment than places where there aren't a lot of pedestrians.
So then just a quick follow-up question. How often are these trains going to be running that students need to watch out for them?
So I think during peak commuter hours, the headways, and I'm going to look John's way and say 7-minute headways. So in order to make it effective for people to come to campus or elsewhere, peak hours will be every 7 minutes or so there'll be a train, and then off-peak maybe every 15 minutes. I don't know at what time in the night train service would stop. I don't know if it's at midnight or 11 p.m. or 11. And in the morning it starts at 5 a.m. So between 11 p.m. and 5 a.m., no service. During rush hour, 7 minutes apart, and then non-rush hour, 15 minutes apart. And it reminds me of a comment that I made when folks were asking about traffic studies on campus, and I said, I could save you a lot of money because there's 2 conditions on campus when it comes to traffic movement. When classes are not, when there isn't class change, things flow through very easily. When class change happens, everything stops, including the purple line. The truth is, when we're at class change and a train comes up, it's going to wait like the rest of us for for the pedestrians to get across, and then it'll continue on.
Thank you.
Great questions. David?
I was just going to say, we also are looking at putting up some barriers along the sidewalks to make sure that students cross at crosswalks. And so that's something that we're studying. That's an issue even now, so that's another.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. And that's one of the things that even today, you can see certain sections of campus, Regents Drive, parts of Campus Drive, where we have posts and chain to be able to guide pedestrians to cross at crosswalks rather than just step into the roadway.
I don't know if you know the answer to this. Is MARC expected to realign their trains schedules once the Purple Line is running?
You're right, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will say that the frequency of the Purple Line is probably, it will, particularly at rush hour, if every 7 minutes, you know, you're not going to have to wait very long for MARC. So I don't know if MARC is actually going to try and coordinate like they do in some, you know, in some cities, it's just remarkable the coordination between different modes of transportation. I don't know if MARC's going to do that, but at rush hour, every 7 minutes, there'll be a train stop there from light rail that you can hop on the next MARC.
I was hoping so, because I live in Howard County, and for me, it's just like the schedules and the cost of riding the MARC train is not feasible for me. And it's very upsetting, because I would prefer to ride public transportation. And on that note, I would like to thank you for your persistency in this project, because 20 years is a long time, so thank you.
When is this going to affect all of the parking?
So the first impact to parking of any consequence will be probably at the start of the next year. So in the fall, this early work with some utility relocations will be in the same way we do utility relocations now. And you put plates down, you might take some spaces out of service for a short period of time and put them back in service. It'll be in the early part of next year where sections of parking lots are impacted. So the first one of consequences near the visitor center, lot C2, I believe it is, because the train will go through that. So when work starts there, those parking spaces will be gone, and we're working closely with transportation services to address the impact of the parking and have parking assignments adjusted to accommodate this construction. Yeah.
Does the westbound Campus Drive, does that stop at Union Lane, or does that continue through Lot 1?
Westbound Campus Drive goes from Regents through to essentially Knight Hall. So at night, there's another signalized intersection in Lot 1, pretty close to Knight Hall, not exactly there, but one parking row away. So from that point west, there are 4 lanes, so public transportation on the outer lanes, and then the inner lanes are in both directions. Beyond that, it transitions to 3 lanes where the traffic is westbound. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Are there going to be any improvements to Fieldhouse Drive to help carry the traffic eastbound that it's going to pick up?
Yeah, we're working, there's a group of us, traffic study and management group that's proposing some changes. We'll do a few things like, for example, encouraging heightened use of Stadium Drive. Also, we're exploring how Fieldhouse Drive and Union Lane work now, and whether we want to direct traffic away from sort of Fieldhouse Drive going further east. I mean, Fieldhouse Drive is pretty constrained along behind the Student Union, Biosciences, Shipley Field. There really isn't room to widen it, so we're looking at traffic control and see, how we can adjust. As I said, when we were in construction with St. John building, and that construction period was 2.5 years, it was one-way westbound, and we made it work. I mean, it was inconvenient in some places.
I know, I just remember some days where I'd go to leave work and
Yeah.
the line was backed up from Regents all the way past the Student Union.
Yeah, and that's exactly the condition that I was referring to, where we may want, what I found, and I experienced a lot of that myself, Stadium Drive was a much better way to get around. So rather than have people get on Fieldhouse and then get stuck at Regents and have to wait, get them on the Stadium Drive. But we're looking at that, and we'll be rolling out some improvements, we think.
Okay, thank you.
And
Sure.
is that gonna be reopened, like where Coldfield House and that new, is that gonna reopen there? Because I know now, that's where I park.
Yep.
And it can take me minimum 25 minutes to 45 minutes to get from there to Route 1, just on a daily basis. And my car has been hit once when I was stopped, and once while I was driving, had students run into the side of my car on their phones. That's why this whole security thing, it's, I don't know, it's really scary. It's really scary.
I appreciate that, and I would say Fieldhouse Drive, which is at the moment closed as part of the Cole Fieldhouse construction project. Fieldhouse Drive will be back in service in July of this year. So long before Purple Line work happens. So that will be back in service. It'll be improved a little bit. One lane. I'm looking at my colleague over there, Bill Holm, who's responsible for the Cole Fieldhouse project. So, so that Fieldhouse Drive will be back in service before we're one way on Campus Drive.
And is there any total number of parking spots that are going to be lost? Have you guys kind of got a number in mind that you know you're going to lose as a project total?
Yeah, there are estimates. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I work closely with David Allen and his team. We have, at the moment, I think I got this number right, 17,762 parking spaces on campus. That's what we have on campus right now. And with, as work happens on campus, that sort of inventory gets examined. Sometimes we're adding parking spaces, sometimes we're taking away. And there's a priority in terms of how many parking permits are issued. So working closely with DOTS, we're sort of making sure that the demand for parking is sized to the parking capacity. So, what David will tell you is that those spaces get managed in the aggregate, and when there is an impact to a specific location like Lot C2, then David and his team work with the parking coordinators to reassign parking assignments. So that's an ongoing piece of work that happens with lots of construction activity. One more here.
I'm
Yep.
just curious, when we build new buildings, why don't we put underground parking?
And sometimes we do. We're looking at that as an example for one of the buildings that's in design right now. So it's a balancing of trying to keep parking affordable, because structured parking is expensive compared to surface parking. Underground structured parking is more expensive than above ground. So it's balancing those factors. Even as we have 17, it's wonderful to have 17,762 parking spaces, but if they're not in the right place, that's a problem too. So, sometimes you need to put a parking structure where you need parking, because that's the only viable option, and we're tackling that. There's some more. Oh, right back here. We'll get to you next, Ralph.
Do you anticipate a spike in crime? Because right now, to get from the Metro to College Park, it is a bit of a, you have to put your mind to it. You either have to walk or find somewhere to drive or catch the bus. Whereas if connecting to the Metro, anybody can hop on, hop off, and just come right onto campus. Has that been a concern for anybody?
Safety and security are at the top of the list of things that we pay a lot of attention to. And actually, Chief Mitchell's here. Maybe let me ask Chief Mitchell. We know that Chief and his folks have been working with us quite a bit on this issue, but since he's here, I'm going to take advantage of asking him to address this.
Thank you, Carlo. It's a concern, as Vice President Colella said, of all of us. Right now, the corridor leading to Metro in College Park is under 24/7, 365 surveillance in our Security Operations Center. We have a Security Operations Center that monitors over 400 cameras on campus, mostly students who work for us in the police department, and they're very good at pan-tilt zoom. So that's a fairly safe corridor. We seldom have any issues there. Right now, with WMATA, we have buses coming on campus, and that's not a major issue for us. The Maryland Transportation Authority is a good partner of ours. The Chief of Police there, Chief Gavrilis, is a good friend of many years. They look forward to working with UMPD. You will see us on the trains. You will see our student police aides on the trains. Lighting around the stops is a major concern. And of course, our access to MDTA or MTA video and their camera system is a concern of ours as well. So a long way of saying I don't anticipate any spikes in crime. I believe it will be very safe here on campus.
Thanks, Chief. Ralph, I think had his hand up a moment ago.
Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Carlo, for making this presentation this afternoon. I might suggest that you put the MTA's website, because I'm going to address other facilities. For those of you who have commuting issues, MTA has the ability to connect you to progress reports through their community assistance teams, affectionately known as CATS, who are meeting periodically to deal with issues all the way along the line. So whatever interest you have between New Carrollton and Bethesda, you can get in touch with developments there by the MTA website. So I wanted to alert them to that. Also, you have a fantastic staff member in your Department of Transportation Services in Anna McLaughlin. There is, I don't know if it's a website yet, but there's a program called Smart Commute. She's presented to my class, and she's an engaging and involving person. The whole effort here is to get everybody out of their cars. And she does transportation demand management, came to us from the District of Columbia, is a very engaging person, and is there to answer questions, and perhaps she could co-present with you at another event here.
That's a great idea.
Because she's very lucid and explains how these changes can occur and how the Purple Line may be able to help.
Thank you. And yes, I believe if you Google UMD Smart Commute, you'll get to that page. Julie.
Thank you, Carlo. This is slightly off topic, but I know I've heard about Baltimore Avenue construction in order to improve the road.
Right.
How will that construction fit in with this Purple Line
Yeah,
project?
great question. So Baltimore Avenue is, there's reconstruction between what we'll call Southgate. It's Regents Drive on the University side and College Avenue on the other side, up to University Boulevard. So that's about a 1.4 mile section of roadway. The work there will add bike lanes in both directions. Currently it's 2 travel lanes in each direction and then a median that is undifferentiated. So there's sort of 5 lanes of asphalt and then curb and sidewalk. So the project will add 2 bike lanes, 1 in each direction, and plant the median, as well as make sidewalk improvements through that whole section. The construction for that is expected to start later this year. Don't have the sequence as to when it is at, at the north side or the Midtown or closer to where Rossborough Lane is, because clearly when that work intersects with the Purple Line work, that's going to have to be dealt with very carefully. But in addition, even when the work is going on, that could affect commuting. Like the Purple Line, State Highway will have a maintenance of traffic plan for that roadway improvement. Typically what happens during maintenance of traffic, there are hours of time, commuter hours, so to speak, where there will be no reduction in lane capacity, so maybe between 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and between 3 and 7 or 3:30 and 6:30, whatever that is, the lanes will be open. But sometimes you have barricades on the side of the road, you have steel plates, and it can have an effect on traffic. So that's going to be a real concern, and as that project moves forward, we'll be communicating that information as well. So if you're not a user of Google Maps and Waze, I would highly encourage you to do that because their real-time traffic information is quite good. And I just make it a habit to use it all the time, and I sometimes avoid a traffic accident that I wouldn't have known about. Great question, thanks. One back here.
I just want to echo other people's gratitude for giving this presentation. It's been very informative. My question is about the closure of Campus Drive up by the Metro. I know it's a year or two out. I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but are you thinking about redirecting the 104 to come up the other side of the Metro to get people to and from campus?
Yes, that is what we hope to do in that time frame is to have the 104 service the west side of the College Park Metro. Now that goes through a residential neighborhood. There's some concerns about that. We're in conversation with the city and hope that the city will enthusiastically embrace that short-term impact. So yeah, that's what will likely happen, because it's really, practically, it's very hard to do anything else during that period of time. And I think we also have an N-Bike station there on the west side of College Park Metro. So maybe one of the things that will happen is there'll be, people who are using Metro can hop on, the bike share and get to campus. And, good question. Other questions? Yes.
My question is about bike path, the bike lane that's going to be constructed along with the Metro line, or the Purple Line. How wide is the lane? Do you know those details?
First off, thank you for reminding me. That's one of the things I wanted to mention, that as part of this Purple Line construction through campus, we're going to have MTA build a bikeway. So I think maybe cycle track is the term of art these days. From Adelphi Road, the station closest to the University College, through to Baltimore Avenue. So that, I want to say it's, and I'll look at John, probably a total of 10 feet wide or 12 feet wide, Mark, 12? So 12 feet wide, and that will be separate from the sidewalks and of course from the roadway. So for that length, which is probably a mile or so, from one end to the other, we'll have a dedicated cycle track through the middle of campus and hopefully improve both for bicyclists, pedestrians, and motorists. Because right now, there's a lot of conflict between motorists and bicycles or bicyclists and pedestrians on a walkway. So to have that dedicated bikeway, we think is going to be a great amenity. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
bringing that. Yep. Cool.
I help run Edward St. John, and I'm curious, the electromagnetic field that you mentioned earlier, just confirming that that would not impact any like microphone frequencies that are in the buildings off of the Purple Line? Sometimes they can cause hum if you get a,
Yeah, I forget I think let's say, let me test my memory here, 0.1 milligauss. I mean, there is, the concern, that the emission that we expect is not expected to hit something at that, it's the really sensitive research stuff that we were concerned about. I don't think it's going to affect microphones, so. And by the way, I should mention vibration too, so that's another area that was of concern, and you know, we studied that and feel pretty comfortable that the vibration isn't going to be a concern. All right, well, seeing no further hands, let me thank you all again for your interest in this. Again, please sign up both for the Purple Line site and for our site. You'll get the most current information, and hope to see many of you again when we do this, probably in the fall. So have a great day, everybody.